Hello there, my name is Jason Boswell, and this is a technical awareness webinar for the new version of Voltage Fusion 24.4 with a new name, Data Discovery and Risk Insights. As you know, we do quarterly updates, so this is the last release of this calendar year, 24.4. So let's get into the schedule and then we'll discuss the technical details of the release. So let's first of all talk about the release schedule. It was released from engineering in mid-October and the demo system has now been updated. So anybody on the demonstration instance or demo tenants, they're able to see whatever we're discussing today. You'll be able to see live inside your tenants. So that has been completed. The dates in red are the provisional dates for the updating of the production systems. Both Prodo 2 and Prodo 1 and 2, the sovereign cloud dates are to be determined. That's into next calendar year. So let's talk about the highlights of this release. So I think front and center, you'll see that the product is called Data Discovery and Risk Insights. There are a lot of open text products have been renamed, and this is to align with the policy of functional descriptive names. Okay, so you'll see this with inside the product user interface. You'll see this inside the documentation, and through October and November, you'll see the marketing material and the lots of the branding pages. They will all be updated in the next month or two. The release is also the long-term support version. So, and this will continue. So, all of our commercial cloud offerings we have releases every quarter, so every 90 days. But to put too much impact on customers who have sovereign or private cloud deployments, this version 24.4 will be supported through 2025. So we will be patching this long-term support version for those private and sovereign cloud deployments through the next calendar year until 25.4, which will be the next long-term support version. The release also includes some new features and customer requested enhancements, also some defect fixes. The highlights include creating and sending a clean, as in a PDF copy of a document with the selected grammars that contain potentially sensitive data, with that data removed from that. Okay, so these clean, desensitized copies. So I'll show you a little bit about that. We've also had a new delete workbook action to optionally use specified credentials instead of using the source credentials. We have some data processing enhancements and improvements, some improvements in terms of workbook review, and some upgraded grammar rules and the updated processing of the grammars. Okay, so now let's get into the detail of some of those new features and how you can make use of them. So first of all, let's cover the product name stuff. So as you can see on the right-hand side, we've got data discovery and risk insights, and core refers to this as a cloud offering. So this is aligned with our policy for descriptive names. So feature-wise, 24.4 of the product of the core data discovery and risk insights is an updated version of 24.3 with all the plans. So what we planned in terms of defect enhancement fixes have gone into this version, and all the features that were previously in Voltage Fusion are brought forward. Okay, so from customer point of view, you know, everything that you had in Voltage Fusion is with inside data discovery and risk insights. Okay, there's no price or license changes that as part of the release process. So all the kind of contracts and licensing that are applied to the Voltage Fusion carry on with this product because it's effectively the same product. And all the product, its service descriptions and marketing material will be updated as part of the release cycle. Okay. Next, let's talk about some of the features. So this is something that we had enabled in previous releases through working with the APIs. And what we've done now is provided an out-of-the-box feature to create a mass copy of documents and send them to a target from a workbook. So this mass PDF version of each item is generated before being sent to the target. The masking is based on the grammar rules. So the same grammar, in the grammar rules, you can configure how you want to mask and which grammars are going to be masked. So that's how you configure which grammars can be executed. And then as you can see in the interface here, you've got this extra option, out of the box option. Instead of send to target, you've got to send masked. So this operates pretty much like send to target. So you do send to target. You would hit send mask and it pulls up a list of destinations. You pick the destinations and then hit send mask. Okay, so this actually instantiates at the agent level to then not just send the actual copies of the document, but clean copies of the documents will be sent to that location. And because it operates at the agent level, there's a requirement that Chromium-based browser is required. And normally you don't have to do too much configuration, but there is some, if you're installing the Chromium browser after the agent's installed, you may have to go into the config and tell where the Chromium browser is located. So here you can see, here's an example of what I've just run here. So this is a document here, a .x, and it creates a copy of the document. You can see it's in this title, in the file name, it says redacted, and it's a PDF document. And you can see I've had the credit card removed and the invoice number removed. But you can see it retains the formatting of the document here. So this is in a table and it's retained the formatting. Now, there are some file formats that are not supported as part of this operation. So some of them are fairly obvious, that some of the containerized files are not supported, email files are not supported, images are not currently supported, PowerPoint files, database files. So we have a number of unsupported file types for masking. You can see in my example here, when you does hit some of the unsupported file formats, it will complete what it can. So it considered, as you can see, I completed 11 of 12 in my example here. And the example, if I click on this, it'll tell me which ones it didn't complete on. And it was in my example, I had a temp file, and the temp file isn't contain any textual content, so we couldn't create a clean copy of it. If we can't create a clean copy of the file, then we just don't send that item to, because we can't guarantee that that is clean. Okay, so this is a feature that we will continue to work towards in the future. We have some plans to start. At the moment, everything is turned into a PDF document, which is, I think, is quite acceptable for a number of different use cases. You might want to, publish some documents for an AI inventory, and you want to make sure all that data is clean. Then a PDF document format is absolutely fine. But so if you do want to retain the native format, you can still do that with the API today. So if you want to change them edit them in there, we can still find where all the sensitive data is. But in the future, we may look at doing native formats. So I'll be listening to the product feedback from customers and prospects, but we could continue to do native formats in the future. We could also, you notice we do a send to target, but we're not changing these at source. That's something else we're looking at for a future release. Okay, the next feature is something that was requested from a customer, and this is to delete using a workbook action, but with specified credentials. Now, out of the box, in previous releases, when we deleted by the delete action was executed by what was set at the source or dataset level. So that was a typical process that we operated on. And that worked for most organizations, but some customers were uncomfortable giving such power to this service account to not just read all the data, but potentially delete all the data inside their system. So what I want to make sure is that the person who's actually executing the workbook action or approving the workbook action, because you can set the credentials at either state, either at execution or the policy approver, they wanted to make sure that the person who's executing that action and actually approves to delete these items has the permissions to actually delete those files. So in that case, what we'd use is we'd set, there's a new feature option on delete that said, instead of using the source credentials, to enter specific credentials. And when you had this option, the user is then prompted to add some credentials, which are not stored. They are just sent through to the action, and then will be, when we sent down to the agent these credentials, and they'll be used for the actual deletion process. So every time you execute that, you would have to put in your credentials. And it's a way of just confirming, yes, I approve. Here's my credentials. On my behalf, go and delete this data. Okay, so it's a good way of making sure that the people who actually, in terms of auditing, the people that are approving are actually deleting the data. Note that this only applies to file system data items in the current version. There's been a number of data processing enhancements. Note that there's a new processing agent required. This new version is 24.4.100. We recommend that customers update their agents as quick as they can, because there is some improvements in terms of processing. A couple of them are highlighted here. We've increased the size of text that can be extracted from a document to 40 megabytes. The Microsoft-based authentication is now the recommended connection method. The app model is going to be soon not available from Microsoft anyway, so we recommend you move across into this authentication model. So that's anything SharePoint-based, you will need to use this authentication model. In the agent cluster detail panel, when you're switching between agents, now the tab view is retained. So it's good when you've got multiple agents to see the latest status. And there's a new pop-up in terms of displaying the work units. So work units are partial elements of a scan. As you can see my work unit here of my target operation that I did in 24.4, but you can see a lot more details. So if you're managing large scans, large center targets, there's a much easier interface about managing those work units. In terms of workbook review enhancements, you can now assign a group as a workspace reviewer. So previously, if you were assigning a reviewer or approver to some actions, you had to specify an individual, and now you can specify a group, and anybody in that group can pick up the action and process those actions. So it's a bit more easier to manage in larger scale operations there. Okay. In terms of updated grammar processing, previously, if you change the grammars, we didn't automatically, or on reanalyzing, we didn't remove grammar entries. So we did for the new grammars that you added, but for the grammars that you removed, they weren't done there. So in terms of when you're changing the grammar sets that are associated with a data set, now we've given you and make it much clearer in terms of the interface about what options you have. And there's much more options about when you can either add or remove grammars. We display much information much clearer, and about what we would require scanning. And the reanalyze icon that I'm displaying here is very clearly displayed about and bolding the items that are affected. Okay. So these are the grammar sets applied to the data set that have been updated and therefore out of sync are the bolded ones here. Note that you have to be careful with the state of your data set here. So in your data set, if your data set is not content stored, so the data is not, the words are not in the index, then a rescan will need to be required. Okay, and rescans take more time, so be careful about that. Any rescan options that you do when your data is not stored, because this will trigger a rescan process. Like any update, we always update to get the latest versions of the grammar rules. So there was some false positives that we're getting from tax identification numbers, and it wasn't identifying these correctly. So that has been improved. Improvements to the US postal codes, way we do with false positives and credit cards. So you can see each version we do an update in terms of the grammar rules to try and make sure the data is as accurate as possible. In terms of defect fixes, just the best thing to do is to go straight to the release notes. Note the drop down I think will be changing here to data discovery and risk insights, but currently this is the valid URL at the moment to access the documentation. That's the full documentation, but it also includes the release notes and the support matrix. So that's your update for Voltage Fusion 24.4, which is now data discovery and risk insights. Thanks very much, guys. Bye for now.